Welcome to Carnegie Mellon Adamson Visiting Writers Series. We're very pleased this evening to have one of our own alums back to read, Susan Henderson. But while she was a student here, Sue was one of our standout writers. She won the Academy of American Poets Prize, and she was quite a fine poet. She's focusing more on prose these days. I think in her book, and perhaps in her reading this evening, you'll hear that poetry come through. She's here on a very happy occasion, and that's to share with us her first novel, From the Blue, which is just published this month by HarperCollins. From the Blue, though it's just been published, has received a lot of rave pre-publication reviews, so I thought I would quote a couple of those to give you some sense for the reception this novel's already receiving. Publishers Weekly gave it a starred review, which means a lot, and says, in this elegant debut, Tilly Harris, about to give birth to her first child, traces her mother's tragic descent into madness when Tilly was 8 years old. Henderson's fascinating novel fearlessly examines the complexities of depression, romantic and filial love, and motherhood. Beautiful, funny, sad, and complicated. Won't you please join me in welcoming Susan Henderson back to campus?
I want to say just a couple things about two of my former teachers who are here. Jim pretty much taught me everything about rhythm and choosing words to use and ending on something powerful at the end of a sentence. And even though I'm not writing poetry anymore, I still pay attention to that. I remember when I came here, I had basically notebooks full of things that I thought were poems, and we spent a lot of time in my first year learning how to write in form, and I felt like I was straitjacketed doing that. I hated doing that, but what I learned was that I wasn't actually writing free form before. I was just kind of writing blather. That felt important to me, and learning how to write in form meant that once I gave up the form, I actually had some sense of structure to my words, and so I appreciate that. Hillary and I had I don't remember what they were called, but it was a one-on-one, and he set me the task of writing a piece of fiction, and I was like a stubborn mule. He taught me how to focus on the work and how to stay in the room and in the scene when I was afraid, and I had an instinct to flee. I can't tell you how often I used that in this book. It's not something that I knew of before I had you, and I feel like there's a lot of both of you in this book, and thank you for that. The first chapter is called The House with the Blue Door. I was barred from school for the day because I'd been biting again. Whenever I pressed my teeth into one of my classmates, my teacher stopped the lesson and called, "Tilly, Tilly!" There was always a struggle as she tried to wrestle the hand or arm from my mouth, but I held on, fighting until the last string of spit released, because I like to leave a mark. Although I had nowhere to go, I got up early and sat on the front steps in my nightgown, knees together, bare feet arched to keep my legs off the cold concrete. American flags rose up the poles and flapped against the Sandia Mountains, pale gray in the distance, as lights popped on inside the little square houses of our neighborhood, each the same size with their well-mowed lawns and rectangular flower beds under the front windows. Soon the men from each home walked tall and purposefully out of their doors, one after another, in their crisp blue uniforms or camouflage jumpsuits, all with the same haircuts, the same pair of glasses. Some, like my father, had more decorations on their uniforms, but from this distance I noticed the sameness. There was a sense of music to the slamming car doors and starting engines, a distinct sense of order as each man backed out of his driveway. Looking from one open garage to the other, I could see that we all had bikes, silver metal trash cans, reel mowers, and rakes. Our home was like all of the others on our street. The only difference was our front door. My mother had painted it turquoise blue. The children were the next to leave with their lunch boxes and textbooks. Girls in plaid and flowered dresses that fell just above the knee. Boys in jeans and short-sleeved checkered button-ups. When I recognized another second grader, her pigtails tied in yarn, I waited for her to see me there with my face decorated in yellow smiley stickers. At first she seemed to pass without noticing me, but at the last moment she turned her head over her shoulder and shrieked, "You have rabies." I smirked until the stickers pinched my skin. "I get to stay home," I said. And then came Mary Beth, wearing a huge Band-Aid with my teeth marks underneath it. During yesterday's class, while she cried and held her arm, I had to stand in the corner of our classroom with my nose to the wall. I found the exact smudge where I'd put my nose the other times, as I listened to Mary Beth's whimpering, the whispers of her friends, and the stern voices of teachers. But there were giggles, too, because even with my nose to the wall, I could still turn my feet inward like pigeon's toes or shake my behind. "My dad says you should keep your teeth to yourself," she said, suddenly gripping the hand of the girl in pigtails. "So what?" I said, standing as they ran together toward the school. "My dad's the boss of your dad." Finally, my brother rushed out of the garage door, trying to close his Scooby-Doo lunchbox without dropping his textbooks. He stopped beside me to see why it wouldn't latch, opening the lid and shifting the jar of green olives and the 2 hot dog buns inside. "You have to slam it," I said. He did, and it bent the lid, but closed shut. "Did you check on Mama?" I asked. Phil shook his head. Our mother had not left her bedroom in 4 days. The last time she'd come out was supper time the night Dad left for his business trip. She said she felt too tired to cook and handed us a box of chocolate donuts before shutting her door. She was so tired these days I wasn't surprised when we didn't see her the next morning. Phil made sure we left for school on time, and when we still hadn't seen her leave her bedroom by supper time the next evening, we opened the door just a crack. The room smelled strong and sweet like rotting flowers, and Phil shut the door again, saying we should just wait for Dad. My brother gripped the handle of his lunchbox, sitting too straight the way Dad taught him, as students continued to stream past our house on their way to school. I pulled a piece of hair from underneath one of the smiley stickers. "Do you think we should tell someone?" His head shook slowly back and forth. "Dad will be home tonight," he said. "We should just wait." He kept his eye on the passing students, and when he spotted a 5th grader from his class, he jogged to catch up, the jar of olives banging back and forth inside his lunchbox. My father's business trip came up suddenly just after the local newspaper did a feature on him. Copies of the paper with photos of the men who'd flown from Washington to meet him were posted at the PX and in the lobby where he worked. I understood almost nothing of what he did, only that he designed missiles. When I visited his office at the weapons lab with its long blackboard full of formulas and diagrams, he always saved an area for me in the right-hand corner where I was allowed to draw with chalk. The children had all passed our house and started down the hill to school, my brother walking in a perfect line on the right side of the sidewalk, eyes down in case he found something to put in his pocket. Our side of the street was the last to get sun, and even this close to summer vacation, the steps froze the backs of my legs right through my nightgown. When I could no longer see the back of Phil's perfectly combed hair, I went inside, entering the house through the garage. I stepped over dirty dishes, crumpled napkins, empty bread bags, T-shirts, apple cores, and pieces of board games, stopping outside my mother's bedroom.